On a sunny day in 1799, a young Conrad Reed was playing in Little Meadow Creek near his home in Cabarrus County, North Carolina. As he ran through the shallow waters, a glint from underneath the rapids caught his eye. He looked down and noticed a varnished yellow rock. Perplexed by its strange color, he picked it up, taking it to his father John. The elder Reed was also interested in the nature of this rock, but thinking of it as no more than a strange colored stone, he placed it in front of a door at his homestead where it would be used as a doorstop for another 3 years. One day, John went up to Fayetteville to the market and decided to take the rock with him to see if it could be worth anything. Reed visited a local jeweler who within an instant was able to identify the mysterious doorstop as a 17-pound gold nugget. John was beside himself with joy as the jeweler asked him to name his price for his son's extremely valuable find. Reed thought long and hard and came up with the sum of $3.50 as a purchase price, which would have been about a week's wages at the time. The jeweler quickly accepted and John walked out a happy man. Of course, the stone's actual value at the time was around 1,000 times that, making the jeweler the winner of the transaction. Once back on Little Meadow Creek, John Reed set about creating as best a gold mining operation as he could. He, as well as a few partners and slaves, panned the shores of the creek restlessly searching through sand and gravel for more riches which they believed were still buried beneath the creek bed. Their efforts were rewarded as a slave uncovered a 28-pound gold nugget in 1803, the largest which would ever be pulled from the waters of the creek. Reed would go on to set up a formal mining operation, which would trade hands over time and last nearly 100 years. Today, Reed Gold Mine is still in existence in Cabarrus and is open to the public as a historic site. The discovery on Little Meadow Creek quickly passed throughout the neighboring counties, and by the 1820s, North Carolina was in a full gold rush. Farmers, speculators, and local landowners all mined creeks and caves throughout the Piedmont region, and many were successful in finding the riches they had hoped for. In the middle of the first major gold rush in American history, a German jeweler by the name of Christopher Bechtler stepped off a ship in New York with his 2 sons and a nephew. After arriving in Philadelphia a short time later, they all immediately petitioned to become American citizens, and after 6 short months made their way to North Carolina in 1829. Many scholars believe this had to have been because of North Carolina gold miners making their way to the Philadelphia Mint in order to have their gold refined. Bechtler undoubtedly would have heard the stories of gold fever in the Piedmont region and decided to make his way there seeking his own fortune. The Bechtlers settled in the town of Rutherfordton, which was a small yet well-established community in Rutherford County, North Carolina. Once there, Bechtler wasted no time in setting up a jewelry and watch repair shop in the middle of town, and the Bechtlers were welcomed into the higher society of Rutherfordton with open arms. Within just a couple years, Christopher was known as one of the most reputable business owners in town and was noted for his keen eye for precious metals and wealth of knowledge surrounding the process of refining them. Around this same time, gold from Rutherford and other surrounding counties was making its way into Philadelphia as many miners wanted their gold nuggets turned into coins in order to allow for them to be used as a more consistent form of currency. However, the journey to Philadelphia from the backcountry of the Carolinas was difficult at the time and was usually too costly to be worth it for small-time miners, which dotted the countryside. Therefore, many of the North Carolina miners got together in order to petition the federal government for a mint to be placed in North Carolina at the center of the gold rush. Unfortunately, this petition was denied, and as such, the miners were forced to look for alternatives. Many of the miners and business owners of Rutherford County approached Bechtler and asked if he would be willing to start up a mint of his own in order to process the gold coming out of the Carolinas. Although hesitant at first, Bechtler eventually relented and in 1831 on a farm just outside of Rutherfordton began producing gold coins for local miners in both $2.50 and $5 denominations. Initially, many were impressed by the purity of Bechtler gold, and they quickly became some of the most reputable form of currency in the South. At the Bechtler Mint, local miners and those from neighboring counties brought their gold flakes and nuggets, which Christopher and his sons would then smelt into long strips, which were nearly pure. They would then stamp out small discs from the strips and then put these discs into a press, which would press lettering into the sides of the discs, denoting their value, purity, and the Bechtler name. The Bechtler Mint would go on to operate until a federal mint was put in place in 1837 in Charlotte, at which time the gold rush in North Carolina had begun to dry up. Christopher Bechtler would pass away in 1843, and his eldest son Augustus would follow him shortly after. The strange occurrence of their deaths taking place so close to one another leads some historians to believe this may have had to do with the large amounts of mercury which is produced in the process of smelting gold. After the deaths of Christopher and Augustus, Christopher Bechtler Jr. took over for a short period, but soon gave up on the enterprise after a few years and moved away from Rutherfordton. By the time the mint had ceased operation, it had minted over $2 million of gold into coins, and in 1832 was the first mint in United States history to produce a $1 gold coin, which greatly changed the face of the Southern economy and began the slow move out of the barter system for working-class people throughout North Carolina. By the mid-1840s, the Bechtler family transitioned away from minting coins and moved back to their jewelry-making roots. Although the mint had closed, Bechtler coins were still in prolific use throughout the South until after the Civil War, as they were one of the most reputable forms of currency at the time. In fact, there were some Confederate government contracts which specify payment in Bechtler gold. Even counterfeiters began to try their best to flood the market with fake dollars made of copper deep into the 1850s. Today, Bechtler gold coins can be found in the collections of a number of large institutions around the nation, including the Smithsonian Museum of American History and the North Carolina Museum of History. Two coins also exist here in Cleveland County, inside the Cleveland County Historical Collection. These two Bechtler gold dollars were gifted to Reverend James Milton Webb, a neighbor of the Bechtlers, sometime in the 1840s. The coins are marked with the name of Augustus Bechtler, which dates them to around 1842 to 1845. These coins were passed through the Webb family for generations, finally ending up in the safe care of the Cleveland County Historical Collection as a part of a major gift from Ralph Webb Gardner, son of North Carolina Governor O. Max Gardner. The two coins are marked as a $1 denomination. The Bechtler coins mark a particularly important period in American history, a time when gold was in abundance in the newly founded country. This time was also particularly important in North Carolina history and began a period of economic prosperity which made it a leading financial force in the South. Today, Bechtler coins are far and few between, as many were melted down for their gold content in the latter part of the 19th century, and most that are in existence today belong to collectors or historical institutions.